My name is Harper, and I'm 27 years old. She stole my story and became a star. I gave her my words, and she used them to erase me. I was her best friend, her secret writer, until the truth turned her fame into her downfall. This is how betrayal made me unforgettable. For as long as I can remember, I've wanted to be a storyteller. Not the glamorous kind with red carpets and paparazzi, but the kind who sits in the corner of a coffee shop, headphones in, spinning entire worlds out of heartbreak and hope. I moved to Los Angeles 3 years ago with 2 suitcases, a beat-up laptop, and a dream to sell my first screenplay. Most days, that dream felt like a joke. I worked as a barista in the mornings and took freelance writing gigs at night. My apartment was small, 1 window, 1 creaky chair, and 1 persistent leak in the ceiling I couldn't afford to fix. But every evening, when the city lights shimmered through the blinds, I'd open my laptop and type until my fingers hurt. I believed that one day, someone would see my words and understand me. That someone, I thought, was Sabrina. We met in an acting workshop held in the back room of a local theater. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I'd gone to deliver coffee to a friend who worked backstage. But the minute I stepped inside, I heard laughter. Sabrina's laughter. It was magnetic, the kind that filled the room and made people lean closer. She had this effortless energy, confident, funny, alive. After the class ended, I introduced myself and we hit it off instantly. She told me she wanted to be an actress but didn't know how to start. I told her I was a writer, still finding my place. That night, over cheap takeout and shared fries, we came up with an idea for a short film, a story about 2 dreamers trying to make it in LA. "You write it," she said, her eyes gleaming. "I'll act it. We'll make it together." It felt like fate. Over the next few weeks, our friendship grew fast and deep. We stayed up until dawn, brainstorming ideas, talking about the kind of women we wanted to become. Sabrina had this way of making everything sound possible. When she spoke, I could almost believe success was right around the corner. I wrote the script and she brought it to life. We shot the short film using borrowed equipment, editing it on my laptop in my dim apartment. When it was done, Sabrina posted it on her social media, and overnight it blew up. People loved it. They loved her. Comments flooded in. "You're so talented, Sabrina. You're such a brilliant writer and actress. You're going places." At first, I didn't mind. I told myself that her success was our success. I was proud of her. I was proud of us. But then something changed. Sabrina started gaining followers. Thousands, then tens of thousands. Her feed became polished, her captions poetic, her short films cinematic. I noticed that the words in her captions sounded eerily familiar. That's because I'd written most of them. When she wasn't sure what to say, she'd text me, "Hey, can you make this sound deep but casual?" And I'd do it. Every time. At first, I thought it was harmless, just helping a friend. But one night, when she was being interviewed on a small podcast, the host asked her how she came up with her creative ideas. She smiled and said, "I've always loved writing. I guess it just comes naturally." I froze. There was no mention of me, not as her writer, not as her collaborator, not even as her friend. When I confronted her later, she brushed it off with a laugh. "Harper, come on, it's just PR. People want to believe in the solo genius thing. It makes for a better story. You know that." I tried to tell myself she didn't mean it maliciously, that fame just made people say strange things. Still, that night, I cried quietly in my apartment, wondering if I was foolish for trusting her so easily. But then she did something that I'll never forget. A few weeks later, she invited me to a small influencer event downtown. I was flattered. It felt like a big step into the creative world. When I arrived, Sabrina was surrounded by photographers and managers. She was radiant, every inch the rising star. When I tried to join her conversation, a man with a headset stopped me and said, "Sorry, this section's for invited guests only." Invited guests? I stared, confused. Sabrina noticed but didn't acknowledge me. She kept smiling, posing for photos. Later that night, I saw her Instagram stories. She was talking about her latest project, the one we had worked on together, calling it her original idea. My phone buzzed with a message from a mutual friend. "Hey, congrats on Sabrina's big pitch. She said she's taking the project to an influencer showcase next month. You must be so proud." My stomach dropped. I had no idea what they were talking about. I called Sabrina immediately. No answer. I texted. No reply. Finally, she messaged me back. Sorry, super busy right now. Don't worry, I'll loop you in soon. That night, as I sat staring at my laptop, the same one we'd used to edit our first film, something inside me cracked. For the first time, I realized that maybe our friendship wasn't built on me. Maybe it was built on my willingness to give and her willingness to take. I replayed every conversation, every late night idea she'd claimed as hers, every thank you that had really been a dismissal. And in that moment, a chill ran down my spine. I didn't know it then. I whisper now, even as I remember that night. But Sabrina wasn't just my best friend. She was my biggest mistake. The next morning, Harper scrolls through her feed and freezes. A post from the influencer event shows Sabrina proudly pitching their joint project under her own name. I still remember my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages, tags, mentions, all saying the same thing. You have to see this. When I opened social media, my entire feed was filled with Sabrina's face. Her name was trending with the caption, "The next creative genius of our generation." I tapped on the video link and felt my breath catch in my throat. It was our short film, the one we'd written together, the one born out of my sleepless nights and tear-stained pages. Only now, it wasn't our film. It was hers. My words, my dialogue, even the camera angles we'd mapped out together, all repackaged as Sabrina's debut project. And she didn't just borrow it. She performed it word for word. Every emotional line, every beat of vulnerability that I had crafted came out of her mouth like a lie dressed in silk. The caption beneath the post read, "Written and directed by Sabrina Quinn." My name wasn't mentioned once. The video had already racked up over 2 million views. Comments flooded in. "She's so talented. Her writing is amazing. Hollywood needs more creatives like Sabrina." I wanted to scream, to type out the truth in all caps, to tell everyone it was my story, my words, my dream. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at my screen until the images blurred together. When I finally confronted her, I was shaking. I caught her after a networking brunch she'd invited me to, where I was barely acknowledged. "Why did you post our film as yours?" I demanded. My voice cracked halfway through. She smiled, her lipstick perfect, her tone condescendingly calm. "Harper, relax. You said we were a team, right? This helps us. The exposure will open doors for both of us." "For both of us?" I repeated, numb. "Then why is only your name on it?" She tilted her head, pretending to think. "It's just marketing. You don't understand how the industry works yet. Trust me, this is better for you." Better for me. Those words echoed in my head for weeks. At first, I tried to believe her. I told myself maybe she was right. Maybe once she got her big break, she'd pull me up with her. But that illusion shattered fast. People started referring to me as Sabrina's assistant. Some of her friends would message me asking if I could edit Sabrina's next script or fix her dialogue again. When we went out together, no one looked at me. They looked at her. I was invisible, just the shadow that moved when she did. Every smile she gave me felt like a transaction. Every thank you sounded rehearsed. But I still couldn't walk away. I didn't want to lose her, not after everything we'd built together. I kept thinking, maybe this phase will pass. Maybe she'll remember who helped her start. Instead, I began to disappear. I stopped submitting my own scripts. Every rejection email felt heavier. Every compliment she got from my writing cut a little deeper. Soon, I stopped writing altogether. Betrayal words used to come easily. Now they felt tainted. I didn't want to create anything that someone else could steal. Sabrina's world, meanwhile, only grew brighter. She had an agent now, a PR team, and a carefully curated circle of influencers who called her the next big thing. She invited me to her events, not as a guest, but as a prop, someone to take photos, run errands, or brainstorm captions when she needed creative input. At one rooftop party, while everyone was drinking champagne and taking selfies, I overheard her laughing with a group of her new friends. "Oh, Harper?" she said when someone asked about me. "She's just my little helper. You know, everyone needs one, the quiet type who makes you look smarter." The table erupted in laughter. I felt something inside me snap. That night, as I rode the elevator down from her penthouse, I looked at my reflection in the mirrored walls. Tired eyes, clenched jaw, a person I barely recognized. I realized I had let her take not just my work, but my confidence, my name, my sense of worth. When I got home, I opened my laptop for the first time in months. I pulled up old drafts, deleted files, and proof of everything we'd worked on together. The original timestamps, messages, drafts with my signature writing quirks. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was determined. I was going to expose her. I was going to show the world the truth. But before I could even type a single word, Sabrina struck first. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. She'd posted a long, dramatic caption on Instagram about toxic people in her life. People who used her for clout and tried to steal credit for her creative vision. And she tagged me. The internet explodes with hate toward Harper as Sabrina paints herself as the victim, and Harper realizes her silence has just become her downfall. The video dropped at midnight. Sabrina called it "My Side of the Story." It was 10 minutes long, filmed in perfect lighting, with soft piano music playing underneath her trembling voice. She looked tearful, the kind of polished pain that makes people feel sorry for you. She said she'd been hurt by someone close to her, someone she'd trusted with everything, someone who was now trying to tear her down out of jealousy. That someone was me. She never said my full name, but she didn't need to. Her fans already knew who I was. We'd appeared together in dozens of posts, interviews, behind-the-scenes clips. I was the quiet one, always sitting beside her, smiling like I belonged there. The comments poured in within minutes. Wow, I can't believe Harper did that to her. Some people will do anything for clout. Cut the toxic ones loose, queen. By morning, my inbox was flooded, not with opportunities, but with hate. Strangers called me a thief, a liar, a leech who tried to ride Sabrina's fame. People I had worked with unfollowed me. One of my small freelance clients emailed to say they were going in a different direction. By the end of the week, every collaboration I had lined up was gone. My phone stayed silent, except for the occasional anonymous message telling me to get a life or stop copying real artists. The worst part was the silence from people who once claimed to believe in me. One producer I'd pitched to before texted, "Hey Harper, just saw some stuff online. Maybe lay low for a bit?" This kind of drama doesn't look good in the industry. Lay low. As if I hadn't already been invisible. My rent was due, and the small gigs that had kept me afloat vanished one by one. I tried to contact Sabrina privately, hoping maybe she'd realized how much damage she'd caused. She didn't answer. Instead, she posted more motivational quotes about outgrowing fake friends. She made me her villain, and people loved her for it. Days turned into weeks. I barely ate. I barely slept. Every time I opened my laptop, my stomach twisted. Writing, the one thing that used to save me, now felt poisoned. Eventually, I deleted all my social media accounts. Watching my name get dragged through comment sections was unbearable. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was also clarifying. Without the noise, I could finally hear myself think, and what I heard was heartbreak. One night, while trying to clean up my apartment, I found an old, dust-covered notebook under a pile of papers. Its edges were worn, the pages filled with messy handwriting and half-finished stories. It was the notebook I'd used back when Sabrina and I first started working together, filled with our early ideas, quotes we loved, fragments of conversations. I flipped through it, page after page of dreams that now felt like ghosts. Then, somewhere near the back, I found a line I had written during one of our brainstorming nights. Maybe betrayal is the best inspiration. I had written it as a joke, but now reading it, something inside me shifted. My chest tightened, not with pain, but with clarity. For months, I'd been drowning in anger, in shame, in silence. But maybe, just maybe, I could turn it into something else. Not revenge, not another online fight, but truth. That night, I opened my laptop again. For the first time in months, the blinking cursor didn't scare me. It invited me. I started typing, not about Sabrina directly, but about everything she made me feel. The betrayal, the loss, the illusion of friendship in a world obsessed with followers, and the words came in waves. By sunrise, I had written 10 pages of a new screenplay. I called it The Muse's Lie. It wasn't just a story, it was my heart bleeding onto the page. Every line felt like therapy, every paragraph like a reclaiming of something she tried to steal from me, my voice. For the first time since everything fell apart, I felt alive again. I didn't care if no one ever read it. I just needed to get it out. But fate, it seemed, wasn't done with me yet. A week later, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Your writing moved me." It was from an independent film producer named Lena Torres. She said she had come across a short excerpt of The Muse's Lie I'd uploaded months ago to an old writers' forum. Her message was simple but powerful. "Your voice is raw, real, and unforgettable. I'd love to talk about your work." Harper stares at the message, her heart pounding. For the first time since her downfall, she feels a spark of hope. The beginning of something new, rising from the ashes of betrayal. When I first saw Lena Torres' email, I almost didn't reply. Part of me assumed it was spam or some kind of cruel prank. I'd gotten used to disappointment by then. It had become the background noise of my life. But something about her message felt different. Gentle, personal, sincere. So I answered. We spoke later that week over a video call. Lena had kind eyes and a calm voice, the kind of person who made you feel seen without you having to prove yourself. She told me she'd been producing small independent films for over a decade, always searching for stories with truth. Not gloss or trendiness, truth. When she asked if I had any completed work, I froze. "It's still rough," I said, embarrassed. "And it's really personal. I don't even know if I want people to read it." Lena smiled. "That's exactly why you should write it. The personal ones are the ones that matter." Her words stayed with me long after the call ended. That night, I opened the draft of The Muse's Lie and stared at the blinking cursor. I told myself I'd just look it over, maybe fix a few typos, but instead, I started rewriting. The moment I touched the first line, something inside me cracked open. I poured everything I had into it. Every moment of love, every pang of betrayal, every sleepless night replaying what I could have done differently. It all found its way onto the page. I wrote about two women who built their dreams together, only for one to steal the other's voice. I changed names, settings, and details, but the emotions were mine, raw and real. Writing those scenes was painful. Some nights I'd stop mid-sentence, tears smudging the keyboard. Other nights I'd write until dawn, my chest aching but lighter somehow. It wasn't revenge anymore, it was release. For the first time in years, writing didn't feel like work. It felt like breathing again. The story wasn't about getting recognition or proving a point. It was about reclaiming the part of myself I had lost in the chaos. Lena checked in every few days, reading drafts and offering quiet, thoughtful feedback. She never told me to change the heart of the story, only to sharpen it. "Let the audience feel what you felt," she said once. "They don't need to know who it's about. They just need to recognize the truth in it." So I layered the story with symbolism. An actress who shines too bright, a writer who fades into shadow, a recurring motif of mirrors and reflections. To anyone else, it was fiction. To me, it was a confession dressed as art. As the pages grew, I started to heal. Each finished scene felt like stitching a wound closed. Meanwhile, Sabrina's name still sparkled across the internet. She attended premieres, posed on red carpets, and posted glossy photos with captions about loyalty and gratitude. I sometimes saw her face pop up when I scrolled through entertainment blogs, but the anger didn't sting the same way anymore. It just felt distant, like watching a movie I'd already seen. I wasn't chasing her anymore. I was chasing me. Weeks turned into months. My little apartment became both my sanctuary and my battlefield. Stacks of printed pages covered every surface, coffee cups lined my desk, and sticky notes filled the walls with ideas and quotes. I even started playing music again while I worked, something I hadn't done since before the fallout. When I finally typed the end, I didn't cry. I just sat there in silence, hands trembling, heart full. I had written something honest, something that belonged completely to me. Lena called that evening, and when I told her I'd finished, she sounded genuinely proud. "You did it, Harper. You turned your heartbreak into art. That's what real writers do. Her next suggestion caught me off guard. There's a national screenplay competition opening next month, she said. You should submit The Muse's Lie. My first instinct was fear. I don't think I'm ready for that, I admitted. What if no one likes it? What if people recognize what it's really about? Then that means it's powerful, Lena said simply, and power scares people before it moves them. So I did it. I formatted the script, attached it to the online application, and clicked submit. My finger hovered over the button for several seconds, but when I finally pressed it, a strange calm washed over me. For the first time in years, I wasn't begging to be seen. I was simply showing up as myself. Weeks passed. I went back to freelancing and started walking every morning just to clear my head. Life felt quieter now, still fragile, but peaceful. Then one afternoon, an email notification appeared on my phone. My heart skipped when I saw the subject line, "Congratulations." Hands trembling, I opened it. Dear Harper, we are thrilled to inform you that your screenplay, The Muse's Lie, has been selected as a finalist in this year's National Storytellers Competition. Harper stares at the screen in disbelief, tears welling in her eyes. The story born from Betrayal is finally being recognized, and this time, it's under her name. I thought becoming a finalist would be the end of the journey, a quiet personal victory I could keep to myself. But life, it seems, had other plans. A week after the announcement, The Muse's Lie was published online as part of the competition showcase. Anyone could read the scripts, comment, and vote for their favorites. I assumed only a handful of people would stumble across mine, maybe a few judges, a few curious readers. By the next morning, it had over 10,000 reads. At first, I didn't understand why. Then I saw a thread on a writer's forum titled, "The Most Honest Script I've Ever Read." Someone had shared excerpts from my story, dialogue about friendship, ambition, and the ache of being erased. Readers were reposting their favorite lines, writing essays about how real it felt. One comment stuck with me. "You can feel this story was lived." Those words made my throat tighten, because they were right. It was lived. Every page was a piece of me I had once been too afraid to show. Within days, more blogs picked it up. Creative circles on Twitter and Reddit started discussing it. They called it a love letter to broken artists, a portrait of betrayal, the most authentic writing to come out of the indie scene in years. And then something surreal happened. Sabrina's own fans began sharing quotes from it. They had no idea who wrote it. They just loved the lines. I scrolled through my feed, half in awe, half in disbelief, as I saw her followers posting my words. Words inspired by the nights she made me feel invisible. One of them even captioned a photo of Sabrina with a quote from my script. "Some people don't steal your spotlight. They steal your shadow and call it their light." The irony was almost poetic. For the first time since my name had been dragged through the dirt, people were seeing my voice. Not the rumors, not the gossip, but me. Lena called me late one evening, excitement bubbling in her voice. "Harper, have you checked your mentions? You're trending in the screenwriting community. They're calling you the breakout talent of the year." I laughed, not out of arrogance, but disbelief. After everything that happened, I didn't think my name would ever mean anything again. "Your name means something because you earned it," she said. "You didn't chase fame. You told the truth." That night, for the first time in a long while, I reactivated my social media accounts. But this time, I didn't post carefully filtered photos or clever captions. I just uploaded a single image, the cover page of The Muse's Lie, with the caption, "For anyone who's ever been silenced, keep writing." I went to bed expecting a handful of likes. When I woke up, there were thousands of messages waiting. People thanked me for giving voice to feelings they couldn't name. Aspiring writers asked for advice. Others shared their own stories of betrayal and resilience. My following grew overnight, not from glamour or manufactured perfection, but from honesty. Lena soon arranged for me to appear in a virtual Q&A hosted by a screenwriting collective. It was the first time I'd spoken publicly since the scandal, and I was terrified. But when the camera went live, and I saw hundreds of faces tuning in, something inside me steadied. For an hour, I talked about storytelling, truth, and how pain can be fuel if you let it. People asked insightful questions, and I answered as openly as I could, until one viewer submitted the question I'd been dreading. Was the Muse's lie based on true events? The chat froze. Everyone waited. I smiled softly and said, let's just say every story comes from somewhere. That answer, simple, ambiguous, but heavy with truth, was all it took to spark a wildfire. The next morning, entertainment blogs picked up the Q&A clip. Headlines read, "Screenwriter Harper Lane hints at real-life betrayal behind hit script." Who inspired the Muse's lie? Fans speculate about a famous influencer. I didn't name anyone, but I didn't have to. The internet connected the dots faster than I could blink. Screenshots of Sabrina's old posts, quotes from my dialogue, side-by-side comparisons. People were putting the puzzle together themselves. My notifications exploded again, but this time the tone was different. Curious, sympathetic, empowered. And then came the moment I knew was inevitable. Under one of the discussion threads about my script, a familiar name appeared. Blue checkmark, perfectly manicured profile picture, and all. Sabrina Quinn had commented, "This is fictional slander. Some people really can't move on." My chest went cold. It had begun again, but this time I wasn't the same quiet girl she could silence. Harper closes her laptop, her pulse steady. She knows Sabrina's fury will escalate, but this time Harper has something she never did before. Power. I'd expected backlash, but not like this. Within hours of Sabrina's angry comment, her team issued a public statement through her management agency. It accused me of defamation, fabrication, and opportunistic storytelling. They claim the Muse's lie was a direct attempt to tarnish Sabrina Quinn's professional reputation. By the next morning, I received a cease and desist letter from her attorney. Reading it, my hands trembled. For a second, I felt that old fear return. The helplessness I'd lived through before, when she painted me as jealous and small. It was the same trap all over again. Only this time, something inside me refused to shrink. Instead of panicking, I forwarded the letter to Lena. Within minutes, she called me. "Don't worry," she said firmly. "They're bluffing. Let's get you proper legal advice before you respond." A day later, I sat in a quiet office across from an entertainment lawyer named Daniel Patel. He read through the documents carefully, then looked up with a calm smile. "She doesn't have a case," he said. "You didn't name her. You didn't use identifiable events. It's fiction inspired by emotion, not biography. You're legally protected." The relief hit me like sunlight after months underground. "Then what should I do?" I asked. "Nothing drastic," Daniel replied. "You don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with truth." So that's what I did. That evening, I wrote a short public statement. No anger, no accusations, just honesty. I posted it on all my platforms. The Muse's lie was born from pain, not spite. Writers write from truth, not malice. Every story is a reflection of something lived, learned, or survived. My only goal was to tell mine, and to help others find their voice too. No hashtags, no call-outs, just that. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people reshared it, calling it graceful, powerful, the definition of quiet strength. Even journalists who had once ignored me began reaching out for interviews. They weren't asking about gossip. They wanted to talk about art, about what it means to turn betrayal into creation. Meanwhile, Sabrina's behavior grew more erratic. She posted late-night rants on her Instagram stories, accusing certain people of riding her success. In one video, she looked disheveled, her words slurring slightly as she said, "You can't just make up lies and call it creativity." Her followers began to notice. Comment sections turned skeptical. People started comparing timestamps, rewatching her old interviews, and realizing how often she'd borrowed phrases or anecdotes from others, including me. Screenshots circulated showing identical lines from my old posts and her captions. The same poetic sentences I'd once written for her were now evidence of her theft. For years, she'd built her brand on borrowed words. Now those words were unraveling her. I didn't respond or gloat. I just stayed focused, attending virtual panels and Q&As Lena arranged. I spoke about ownership, authenticity, and the cost of silencing artists. My favorite moment came when a young woman in the audience asked how I'd survived being publicly shamed. I told her, "They tried to take my name, but they couldn't take my story. That's what saved me." That clip went viral. Within days, it had millions of views. People weren't just sympathizing, they were connecting. They saw their own struggles mirrored in mine. Soon, well-known influencers and writers began speaking up in my defense. One tweet from a best-selling author read, "Harper Lane is proof that truth will always outlast performance." Lena texted me that night, "You've become the voice people needed, Harper." Sabrina's team tried to salvage her reputation, but every move backfired. She deactivated her comments, lost sponsorships, and quietly canceled upcoming appearances. For the first time, the spotlight she had stolen began to burn her instead of light her path. I should have felt vindicated, but what I really felt was peace. I didn't want her downfall. I just wanted my freedom, and I finally had it. Then, one morning, an email arrived that made my stomach drop. It was from a national talk show, one of the biggest in the country. They wanted me to come on to discuss my journey as a writer, my experiences with betrayal, and the power of storytelling. At the bottom of the email was a single line I couldn't ignore. "We are also scheduling a guest appearance from influencer Sabrina Quinn for the same episode." For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. 2 years ago, that idea would have terrified me, but now the thought of facing her didn't fill me with fear, only clarity. I wasn't the same girl she'd silenced. This time, I had a voice that couldn't be stolen. Harper accepts the invitation, knowing that soon she and Sabrina will face each other again, not as friends, but as two women on opposite sides of the same story. The morning of the interview, I woke up long before dawn. My stomach churned with nerves, but beneath the fear was something steadier, resolve. I'd spent years trying to hide from Sabrina, from what she did to me, from what she turned me into. But this time, there would be no running, no silence. The world had watched her version of the story long enough. Now, it was my turn. Lena arrived early, clutching 2 coffees and a reassuring smile. "You don't have to prove anything," she said as we rode to the studio. "Just speak your truth. That's all you've ever needed to do." Still, as the car turned onto the studio lot, I felt a pang of doubt. What if I froze? What if she twisted everything again, just like before? When I walked into the green room, the air was thick with hairspray and tension. Sabrina was already there, surrounded by her makeup artist, stylist, and PR manager. She looked flawless. Perfect curls, designer dress, that same photogenic charm she wore like armor. She turned when she saw me, her expression stretching into that trademark smile. "Harper, it's been ages," she said sweetly, as if we were old friends catching up. I managed a polite nod. "Yes, it has." She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Let's not make this awkward, okay? I'm sure we can both handle this like professionals." Her tone dripped with the same condescension she used years ago when she told me, "It's just PR." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My silence made her shift uncomfortably before she turned back to her mirror. When the stage manager called us to set, I felt my heart hammering in my chest. The bright studio lights made everything surreal. The cameras, the live audience, the red blinking, on-air sign. The host, a warm woman named Cynthia Rhodes, welcomed us both and set the tone perfectly. Today we're discussing creativity, betrayal, and the thin line between inspiration and exploitation, she said. And we're joined by 2 women whose paths have crossed in unforgettable ways, author and screenwriter Harper Lane and influencer actress Sabrina Quinn. The crowd clapped politely. Sabrina waved, smiling radiantly. I sat quietly, grounding myself with slow breaths. Cynthia began with questions about the Muse's lie, how it became a cultural phenomenon, how readers connected to its emotional honesty. "It's funny," Sabrina cut in with a delicate laugh, "how people rewrite history once fame comes into the picture." The words hung in the air like a knife wrapped in velvet. The audience gave a collective murmur, unsure whether to laugh or recoil. I turned to her, steady and unflinching. "History doesn't need rewriting when it was never acknowledged in the first place." Sabrina's smile faltered for just a second. Cynthia raised a brow. "Harper, do you want to elaborate on that?" I nodded slowly. My voice came out calm, but every syllable carried years of buried truth. When you create something from your soul, it's not just words or ideas. It's pieces of who you are. And when someone takes that without understanding the cost, they don't just steal art, they steal identity. The studio fell silent. Even the air seemed to pause. Sabrina tried to interrupt, laughing lightly. I think people take inspiration too personally. No one owns ideas, right? I looked straight at her. Sometimes, the story you steal becomes the story that destroys you. The words came out effortlessly, not rehearsed, not vindictive, just true. The audience gasped softly. Cynthia's eyes widened. Sabrina froze, her expression twitching for a fraction of a second before she tried to recover with another tight smile. But it was too late. The mask had cracked. She stumbled through a defensive rebuttal, rambling about creative overlap and misunderstandings. But the tone had shifted. The audience could feel it. The tension wasn't about gossip anymore. It was about truth. When the segment ended, Cynthia thanked us both, but all eyes followed me as I stood up. Sabrina's applause sounded hollow beside the real clapping from the audience. As soon as I stepped backstage, my phone started vibrating nonstop. Lena grabbed it, scrolling with disbelief. "You're everywhere," she whispered. "They're calling it the most powerful interview of the year." Clips from the show were already circulating online. My line, "Sometimes the story you steal becomes the story that destroys you," was trending, quoted by journalists, authors, and fans alike. Hashtags like Sharon Harper Speaks Truth and Rana the Muse's Lie filled the internet within hours. Meanwhile, Sabrina's social media was flooded with criticism. Her charm had finally lost its hold. I didn't celebrate, though. I just sat quietly in the car as we drove home, staring out at the city lights, flickering against the glass. The war was finally over, and somehow I'd won without ever raising my voice. That night, as I curled up on my couch with my laptop, a new email appeared in my inbox. The sender was a name I didn't recognize, but the subject line made my heart leap. Streaming partnership proposal, The Muse's Lie. I opened it, and my hands began to shake. It was from one of the biggest platforms in the country. They wanted to adapt my screenplay into a feature film. Harper stares at the glowing screen, realizing her once-stolen story is about to reach millions, this time with her name in lights. The offer from the streaming platform felt surreal. For a long time, I just stared at the email, half expecting it to vanish like a dream. But it was real. They wanted The Muse's Lie. Not a small indie production, not a digital short, but a full-length feature film for global release. Lena was the first person I called. She screamed so loud through the phone that my cat bolted under the couch. "Harper, this is it. This is what every writer dreams of." Within days, I was in meetings with producers, directors, and creative consultants. They treated me not like an assistant, not like a ghostwriter, but as what I always wanted to be, the creator. The script was mine. Every scene, every emotion, every line that once lived in the shadows was finally standing in the light. They credited me as the sole writer and executive producer. Seeing those words printed on the official paperwork brought tears to my eyes. I remembered the countless nights I'd typed in the dark, convinced no one would ever read my work. And now people were building sets, designing costumes, and hiring actors to bring my story to life. The production process was intense but exhilarating. I worked closely with the director, a woman named Ava Chen, who believed deeply in emotional storytelling. "Your words carry truth," she told me during our first meeting. "That's what audiences crave, not perfection, but honesty." As filming began, buzz started building online. The entertainment press picked up the news, calling The Muse's Lie one of the most anticipated adaptations of the year. Critics praised the script's raw emotional depth, and fans wrote think pieces about its message, how art born from pain can become healing for others. Meanwhile, Sabrina's silence was deafening. Her once bustling social media accounts grew quiet. Brands quietly severed ties, and the collaborations she used to flaunt disappeared. Rumors circulated that her management had dropped her after the public fallout. Occasionally, she posted a vague quote about growth or starting fresh, but even her most loyal followers had moved on. Her empire, the one she built on borrowed words, had crumbled. I didn't celebrate her downfall. Watching her fade from relevance didn't fill me with satisfaction. It just felt inevitable, like a truth that had finally caught up to a lie. Instead, I focused on what I had gained, not fame, but freedom. As production wrapped, I took a quiet day for myself. I went back to my old apartment, the one I had nearly lost when everything fell apart. The walls were bare now, but I could still feel the ghost of who I'd been there, scared, heartbroken, silenced. I sat on the floor, where my tiny desk used to be, and opened the same old notebook I had found that night months ago. Its pages were yellowed, the ink fading, but the words were still there. Maybe betrayal is the best inspiration. I smiled through tears. That line, once written in pain, had become prophecy. When The Muse's Lie finally premiered, I sat in the front row of the theater, Lena on one side, Ava on the other. The lights dimmed, the screen flickered, and my story unfolded for the world to see. The audience laughed, gasped, cried. When the credits rolled, my name appeared. Bold, centered, undeniable. Written and produced by Harper Lane. The applause was thunderous. I tried to stay composed, but when Lena squeezed my hand, I broke down sobbing. The next morning, reviews poured in. Headlines read, "The Muse's Lie captures the soul of a generation. Harper Lane redefines the meaning of resilience." The film was nominated for several awards within weeks. Suddenly, people who once ignored my emails were begging for meetings. But success didn't make me arrogant. It made me grateful. Every victory felt like a quiet apology from the universe. At the biggest award ceremony of the season, I was asked to give a speech after The Muse's Lie won Best Screenplay. Standing on that stage, the lights blinding and the audience on their feet, I took a deep breath. "My story began in silence," I said. "It was built from betrayal, heartbreak, and loss. But today, I stand here not because someone gave me a platform, but because I refuse to stay quiet. If anyone out there has been silenced, I want you to know, your voice still matters. Even in the dark, keep writing." The applause roared again, but all I felt was peace. Later that night, back in my hotel room, I opened my laptop to a flood of congratulatory messages. Among them, one caught my eye. It was from an unfamiliar email address, but the name made my heart stop. Sabrina Quinn. The subject line read, "Can we talk privately?" I stared at it for a long time, the glow of the screen reflected in my eyes. Harper hovers over the message, uncertain. After all these years, Sabrina wants to speak again, but Harper can't tell if it's closure or another trap. For a long time, I just stared at Sabrina's name on my screen. It had been years since I'd seen it in my inbox, yet just reading it sent a strange chill through me. Not fear, but something quieter. Memory, maybe. Her subject line. "Can we talk privately?" Pulsed like a heartbeat in the corner of my vision. I hesitated before opening it. I told myself not to, that nothing good ever came from reopening old wounds. But curiosity, that stubborn human kind, got the better of me. The email was short, polished, like everything she did, but laced with something unfamiliar. "Harper, I watched The Muse's Lie. I wasn't sure I could at first, but I did. It was beautiful. You were right, about everything. I didn't realize how much damage I caused until I saw it from the outside. I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go that far. I know it doesn't change what happened, but I wanted you to know that I'm proud of you. Sabrina." I read it 3 times, maybe 4. The words were soft, carefully chosen, but I could feel the distance between every line. It didn't sound like remorse. It sounded like guilt, the kind that comes not from empathy, but from consequence. Still, a small part of me, buried deep beneath the scars, wanted to believe she meant it, that there was still a trace of the girl I'd once stayed up all night laughing with, dreaming with. But the truth was simpler. I didn't need her apology anymore. I closed my eyes, took a slow breath, and began to type my reply. "Thank you, Sabrina. You gave me the story that made me who I am. No anger, no sarcasm, just truth." I hit send, then hovered for a moment before clicking delete conversation. Watching her name vanish from my inbox felt symbolic, like erasing the last shadow she still cast over my life. That night, I slept peacefully. For the first time in years, there were no restless dreams, no old arguments replaying in my head. Just silence. Beautiful, earned silence. Months passed. The film continued to soar. The Muse's Lie won awards across festivals, praised for its honesty and emotional depth. Every accolade felt surreal, but I stayed grounded. I still took walks in my old neighborhood, wrote in my favorite coffee shop, and kept Lena close like family. Then came the biggest night of all, the National Film Awards. The Muse's Lie had been nominated for Best Original Screenplay. As I sat among the crowd of glittering celebrities, I couldn't help but think of how far I'd come. The same industry that once turned its back on me now clapped when my name appeared on the nomination screen. When the presenter opened the envelope and said, "And the winner is Harper Lane for The Muse's Lie," time seemed to stop. The crowd erupted. My heart raced. I stood, hands trembling, tears threatening to spill. Lena hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe, and then I walked up to the stage, the lights blinding but warm. For a second, I couldn't speak. I looked out at hundreds of faces, faces that represented the world that once doubted me. And all I could think about was the girl I'd been, the one sitting alone in her apartment, writing through tears, thinking no one would ever listen. I found my voice again and began. Years ago, I thought my story ended when someone took my work from me, I said. I thought my silence was permanent, but I was wrong. The truth is, no one can steal your voice if you never stop writing. The audience rose in applause. The sound washed over me like a wave, not validation, but liberation. In that moment, I wasn't just Harper the writer. I was Harper, the survivor. Harper, the creator. Harper, the woman who turned betrayal into beauty. When the ceremony ended, I slipped out quietly. Fame was loud, but peace was quiet, and I had learned to value the latter more. Driving home through Los Angeles, the city lights shimmered across my windshield like a constellation of second chances. Every flicker reminded me how pain could transform into something radiant if you let it. I rolled down the window, letting the night air fill my lungs, and whispered to myself, not bitterly, not mournfully, but with a sense of peace that had taken years to find. Sabrina used me for fame, but I used her betrayal to build the story that made me unforgettable. The words felt final, a closing chapter I'd written not with vengeance, but with purpose. And for the first time in my life, I knew the story was truly, completely mine. In the end, I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. Sabrina stole my words once, but I turned her betrayal into the story that made me whole. Fame fades, lies crumble, but truth, it outlasts everything. I lost a friend, but I found my voice. And that's a trade I'd make every time, because sometimes the only way to win is to let the truth speak louder than the pain. If this story moved you, if you've ever trusted someone who turned your truth into their lie, then you know how it feels to fight for your voice. Don't forget to share this story. Someone out there might need to hear it tonight. Hit like, subscribe, and stay with me for more stories that remind us what betrayal can teach and what truth can heal. But tell me this. If the person who broke you came back years later asking for forgiveness, would you give it to them?